and welcome to today's show. Now, today I've got a lady, Ricki McKenna. She's a certified chef and nutritionist, and she works with men and women and lots of different groups of people. And she's really, really inspiring. That's why I wanted to speak to her today. So I'm hoping that in this episode, Ricki is going to share some easy tools, mindset shifts, real life tips that you can start using today, even if you're short on time, energy, or motivation. Whether you're cooking for one, feeding a family, or just trying to get through the week. So, so this conversation will give you a practical, feel-good way to nourish yourself again. So, welcome to the show, Ricki.
Thank you, Jackie. I'm happy to
So,
be
let,
here.
so tell me a little bit about yourself first of all, and your background, who you work with, and what do you do?
Okay, well, my background started in this part of my life about 25 years ago. Prior to becoming a certified nutritionist and working as a chef and so forth, I had a career in art and in a number of other things, including retail. And so I've worked with people all my life, and I discovered something that many of them don't eat well. And there's it's very interesting. There's a lot of confusion about what is good food, what is good for you, what's out there, as far as what the availability is of really wonderful. I love organic food for the most part. But I started in this journey about 25 years ago, and I've discovered that one of the big factors is people don't like to cook for themselves. So my focus is basically on cooking for one and how-tos. I'm big on teaching how to do things that really make life easier for you, faster in the kitchen, and you get good nourishment instead of wondering what's in your food if you're going out to restaurants all the time. And I just have a good time with it. It's people who lack energy during the day. They want more energy. Entrepreneurs who are so busy they really don't want to be bothered with cooking themselves a gourmet meal, which can be done in 30 minutes. And getting the results that they want as far as their health. That's my biggest concern as a nutritionist, because there's a lot of four-letter word junk out there, and I help them get
Yeah.
through that and hopefully help themselves to get really, really healthy. Optimally healthy is what I call it.
Okay. So what really inspired you to focus on helping people with this then? I mean, I know
I'm
you've
I'm
already
a
mentioned it.
well, natural born teacher and caretaker, caregiver, caretaker, but I love to teach. I really do. There's so much information running around in my head that I have to give it. I'm a giving person, and I found that helping people with their real life confusion, sometimes helping them get out of the confusion, and real life problems as far as in the kitchen, I meditate. I find it very calming, and I have a good time there. And what I do is what I call intuitive cooking, which means, well, to give you a perfect example, the story about the gentleman to whom I'm engaged, the first time we had dinner together, I cooked at his home. And he said, well, there's nothing in the refrigerator. So I looked, and about 30 minutes later, he said, she served up a gourmet meal. So knowing what you can do with food and how to store it, that's a biggie, because a lot of the complaints that I get from clients is the stuff that I buy goes bad before I use it, especially fresh greens, leafy greens and fresh vegetables. So I teach people simple, easy ways to store things so that they don't go bad. And there's also something called the freezer, which works quite well, especially if you're cooking for one and you happen to make a little bit too much, and how to take that little bit too much the next day or 2 days later and turn it into something that's totally different using the same ingredients. So that's where I have fun. And as I say, I meditate and I create in my kitchen. And that's what led me to start my own Zoom show. I have classes online where I teach and show literally how to prepare a meal, how to use knives, how to sharpen knives. As a matter of fact, Jackie, I had the funniest thing happen. Dear friend of mine unfortunately lost her hubby of 20 years. And she asked me, she said, I have these knives and they're dull and I don't know how to sharpen them. And I said, well, do you have a sharpener? Well, she had this gadget, and I love gadgets, but this was one of those that it was impossible to figure out how to use it, even if you followed the instruction or if you knew what you were doing to sharpen knives. So I said, how about if we get a good old-fashioned knife sharpener? So she got a knife sharpener, and literally online last week, I instructed her on how to sharpen knives with this knife sharpener. And she was very happy because it actually worked. So I love doing things like that. It makes my heart feel good. So if
So,
I
what
can,
do you think is the most common struggle that people have?
well,
Um, do you think what struggle do you think people really do have when it comes to food and doing those things? What do you
well,
think is the most common struggle?
I think first of all, it's the idea that they can do it. Some people are afraid of food. They're afraid to figure out, oh, if I touch this, I don't know how to cook this. So that's where the how-tos come in. And the other thing very much that I find is they don't know how to store things so that, as I said earlier, they go bad
Yeah,
before they're used. So showing people literally how to cut something, how to cut certain vegetables, how to peel them. They're afraid. And they don't want to ruin something. They don't want to go out and spend a good bit of money on foods and then have them ruined. So I take the fear out of cooking and help give people more confidence in themselves. So it boosts their confidence, it boosts their health, and they can choose the things that they really want to eat. And one of the things I've said is there's nobody looking over your shoulder when you're cooking or preparing something. So if you make a mistake or you put too much this in or not enough of that in, it's up to you. Doesn't matter. And you can do it again and correct your mistakes or however you want to do it.
So, what's one super simple meal that you could make when you're probably low on energy and time? Because in this day and age, we all seem to be rushing around, especially as women.
Mm,
Um, and
true.
how can women start cooking healthier meals without turning their whole life upside down?
One suggestion that I've made for years because I found it works: when you purchase vegetables, fruits, and meats and so forth, do it at a time, number one, when you're not hungry, so you're not picking up things that you really don't need, but gosh, it looks good. Make a list. That's super important, especially when you're missing a few things or you think you want a certain thing. Make a list and stick to it. Then when you get everything home, especially the veggies and the fruits, wash them then and there. And invest in something called a lettuce spinner. It's not just for lettuce. It helps to dry and remove the excess water from leafy vegetables, any kind. Even broccoli, you can throw broccoli in there and it'll take the excess water out of it. So, and then when you store it, the thing that I promote are something called green bags. I don't know if you have them in New Zealand, but I've seen them online, so you can
No.
get them through Amazon. They help preserve the foods better. They really are better. Plus the fact that the plastic packages that have the top you just pick up and they're full of lettuce or spinach or something like that. Once they're open, take a paper towel or two and put it on the top especially and around the sides before you close it, because most of the time the condensation rises or goes to the sides, and that's what helps to wilt the vegetables. So if you've got the absorption factor of the paper towels in there, they last longer and they stay fresher.
So, are there three go-to ingredients or staples you recommend? So, I'm talking really mainly focusing on women, on
Mm-hmm.
busy women, busy professionals. They
Yes.
should keep in their kitchen.
Oh, that's that's a tough one for me because I
It's like
have so much
mastermind.
stuff. Okay. I would suggest have a good freezer. Um,
Yeah.
if all else fails, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You can do an open face so you don't get as much carbs with the bread. But seriously, and I like almond butter. My staples are vegetables. I would suggest, if nothing else, different forms of lettuce or spinach. You can always make a salad. You can always throw a salad together. And whatever ingredients you want to put in it. Some can come from cans if you have some frozen foods. Um, the frozen is your next best bet to fresh. But I would suggest in the area of fresh staples would be lettuce or greens that you like to eat for a salad, and other things that you want to go in, whether it's tomatoes, um, oh gosh, all kinds of peppers, and jicama or cucumbers, celery, olives. That's another thing. Olives are wonderful to pick up the flavors and the colors in a salad. You can always do a salad and have some good organic canned vegetables, such as chickpeas or beans that you like, because you can always mix those with a salad. So if all else fails, you still have a salad, and have some yogurt, either non-dairy yogurt, which is either almond-based or coconut-based usually, um, and some cottage cheese. I think those are staples. But definitely salad ingredients, greens, and some canned veggies that are already they're organic and ready to eat, because you can always mix those and make a meal within about 15 minutes.
So, what would you say that that sounds great, some of the ideas, and it's really about having a colourful diet. It sounds like,
Mm-hmm.
you agree with all of those colours of the rainbow, and it makes you feel good, doesn't it? And you get in your water
Yes.
content and things like that. I'm sure it makes you feel good when you have a salad, it makes you feel more uplifted.
If it's filling enough, and you don't have to eat mountains of it, but that's where you add something like the chickpeas, and they can be added directly out of the can most of the time because they are cooked. I would suggest warming them up a little bit and perhaps sautéing them, giving them a little bit more spices than are in there's nothing in the can with them. And perhaps just some other fresh veggies that stay fresh, as well as you can always plop some cottage cheese on top of a salad for protein as well. It's pretty good there. Almond butter, and oh, by the way, nuts, pistachios, walnuts, almonds. You can always either put them in whole or chop them up a little bit and put them on top of a salad. That gives you your essential oils. Those are the good oils that we need. And I would have, if nothing else, a bottle of olive oil and a bottle of either red wine or white wine vinegar or even balsamic vinegar, because you can always make a salad dressing very quickly like that.
Yeah,
Lemons.
that's right. So,
Lemons.
what would you say is your favorite lazy but still nourishing meal?
Hmm. I would probably say a spoonful of almond butter. I happen to love
Almonds. Why do you say almond butter? Because I know, in NZ, my children have always eaten a lot of peanut butter,
exactly.
peanut butter and banana generally. We do have
Yes.
it with jelly. I know they don't have that in the UK here, but I know in New
Oh,
Zealand my kids have been guilty of having peanut butter and jelly,
jam.
jam, peanut butter and jam. Yeah, that's right.
Well, actually, if nothing else, I'll just throw a salad together and put everything I can find in it. whether it's
All the leftovers. So taking advantage of those
exact
leftovers.
that's one of them, yeah. And actually, with a salad, you can always, if you have a piece of cooked meat, let's say you make a meatloaf and you have slices, you can always take a piece of cold meatloaf and sprinkle a little mustard and mayonnaise together, mix it together to make a little dressing, and put that into a salad, or of course a piece of fish if you have that. And if you've got something like fish left over, I have a piece of actually red trout that I couldn't finish last night. So
Wow.
today, what I'm going to do is take a fork, break it up, add a little bit of chopped up celery, a little bit of scallion or green onions, and maybe even, I think I have some apple slices in there. I'll chop up some apple and make myself a salad with that, with the fish. That's
Sounds
what I
yummy.
call repurposing. Oh, yeah. Yep. And you,
Repurposing.
hmm
So how can someone shift their mindset? Because, as women, we do have a tendency to rushing around. From the
yeah,
mindset from I have to cook, they're standing there at the bench, I have to cook, to I need to nourish myself. So
hmm
what do you tell women who say they're just not good in the kitchen? How would you change their mindset around that
You mean the ones that
and
don't know how to
motivation?
boil water? No, I'm being facetious. I think I should make a distinction between cooking and preparing a meal. Cooking means you add heat to it in some form, whether it's on a range top or in an oven, or if you're lucky enough to have a little foodie, or the little compact ovens. Those are great, by the way. If you're really hungry and you're in a hurry, I suggest having those cleaned vegetables and fruits that you've already done when you bought them, refrigerated and ready to go. You can always get one of my favorite gadgets is it's a round thing and it's divided into I think 12 sections, and you slice apples with it. There's
Right.
also one I think that does 8. Instant snack, or you can take the apple and add some cheese to it. That's a good little snack or meal, a light meal. Especially if you just come home from the day and it's 7 p.m. and you don't know what the heck, you're tired, you don't want to mess around with cooking, grab a piece of fruit, grab some cheese, and cheese will keep quite well if you wrap it in waxed paper and then plastic. Um, and there's the salad idea again. You can always salads are not just lettuce and tomatoes. Salads are anything you put together. I put broccoli in my salads. I put apples in my salads. Daikon radish, cucumbers, celery, the usual things, but a little bit more. And then grab yourself a spoonful of peanut butter or almond butter if you want that. That's fine. By the way, sometimes you can eat breakfast for dinner. If it's easier to prepare some oatmeal or just not my favorite foods, bowls of cereals because they're high carbs and not a lot of nutrition. But oatmeal's a good one, and you can throw a batch of fruit on top of it and a bunch of chopped up nuts, and you've got a great meal because it gives you your carbs, it gives you proteins and good oils and fats.
So do you think it's sort of, because I work a lot myself with habits, and yeah, it's like when it comes to anything in life, like it's really about getting into a routine. So do you think the motivation of wanting to cook and getting enjoyment from cooking,
Yeah.
if you're not great cooking, it's just really it's one of those facilitating that by getting into a routine, your brain, the patterns change because when you do repetition, you
Yeah.
tread those same pathways. And so,
hmm
what do you think about that? Do you think it is about getting into a routine and forming a habit? And then the more they do it, the more they start to enjoy it.
Yes, I think that is part of it. You're absolutely right, Jackie. Because I know that my routine involves, and this is part of my relaxation as well. A lot of us sit in front of computers, as we are now.
Like now,
Yeah. And I don't know about your butt, but my butt gets tired of sitting, so I have to get up. And
Yeah.
my place to go is usually the kitchen for some more water, or I'll combine something like pomegranate juice with water. I dilute it because it's really concentrated and it's a lot of sugar. So I will take a fruit juice and dilute it and maybe put a few cubes in it. You get into a habit. And once you get into the kitchen and you start to make things that work for you, that make you happy, that satisfy you physically as well as emotionally, which is important because food is very affects your emotions quite well,
Yeah.
hopefully quite well. And once you get the idea, the hang of it, that you can really do this, and whether it's making a sandwich. Yesterday I made BLTs. I haven't made BLTs, bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches in ages. And it was just something in my head said, I've got bacon. Let's do that. It was delicious. But it was out of my regular routine because I don't eat sandwiches often. I'd rather eat the fillings on a plate and leave out the bread with all the carbs and the sugar. But it just worked yesterday. So, but yes, getting into the habit and feeling confident in the fact that you can do that. Don't fear food. It's there for you for nourishment and for energy and, for maintaining your weight or even losing weight. That's where, as I said, you make either an open-faced sandwich or you just eat the ingredients.
So I
Does
wanted
that
to
help?
ask you because stress is another thing when it comes to cooking food and stressful things going on with people's lives. So
Yes.
how do you think cooking can actually reduce stress rather than add to it? And can food really help with things like your energy, sleep, mood, and when we get into our midlife?
Well, for one thing, once, and this works for people who do or don't exercise, I would suggest exercise going along with the food. Most of the time you're standing up and you're preparing food. Food can make you feel better. Think of it that way. For example, if you're feeling kind of tired and you want something as a pick-me-up, don't necessarily reach for the coffee with the caffeine or maybe the hot chocolate, whatever, but reach for protein. Whether it's, that leftover piece of meatloaf, you can eat it cold, nobody's watching. Or, a leftover piece of protein, whether it's a meat protein or veggie, and something like quinoa salad, where you can add anything in the world you want to, and quinoa's got about 14% protein. It's also gluten-free. So think of food as your friend. Really, don't fear food. It's meant to help you feel better. If you need a pickup, get some protein. Grab a piece of cheese. Another thing. It just reminded me. Boil some eggs. Hard boil some eggs and keep them in the fridge. They'll stay well for a week. And you can always crack open an egg and add it to something or just put a little salt and pepper on it and eat it. That's a good snack. So when you
So do you
try,
think that will help with the stress with people's stress levels?
yes,
You think
because
with feeding themselves?
feeding themselves from things that they've already prepared. And the stress level will calm down if you know you've got that in the fridge and you can just go grab it. That's what I call my grab and go foods instead of, the packaged stuff. And you can get some packaged stuff, but for the most part, please read the labels. Um, Stress-wise, this is where I meditate in the kitchen because I'll look at things that I have in the pantry or in the refrigerator, in both, and take things out and put everything out that I think I want to eat, and then figure out if I want to nibble on that or I want to combine it with that. And my stress level just goes because I don't
Because
have to.
you've already planning. And I mean, it is really about prior planning. That old saying, prior planning prevents poor performance. So what's the simplest way then? So from what you've said there, the simplest way to approach meal planning for the week, is it really that prior planning? And is meal prep worth it? Obviously, you've already spoke about different strategies,
Oh yeah.
toolkit that you can have. Um, which is, obviously not intimidating and things like that, and ways
Mm-mm.
to start. So, what have your thoughts around that? What's the simplest way to approach meal planning? And is meal planning worth it? Which you've already talked a lot about different things that they can do.
Yeah, number one is, what do you like? Get a meal planning sheet. I don't have one in front of me right now, but make a list. Use a big tablet,
We'll
here.
do that on our next talk. We
Ta-da!
can share that on our next talk, Ricki.
Okay. But seriously, make a list. List the things that you like. Then see what you already have. For example, if you've already got a big jar of artichoke hearts that are marinated, don't go out and buy another one just because it looks good on the shelf and you're hungry. So make a list, take a look at what you have. It doesn't take more than 10 minutes. Write down the things that you want, and then figure out what the meals are from there. And I certainly can give you lots of recipes. They're on my Patreon page. So see what recipes you want to make, figuring out what you already have, and then list the things that are needed to fill in, to add to those staples that are already there. And I'm a big fan of butter. I do not like margarine. It's plastic. If you put butter outside, a bar of butter and a bar of margarine, the bees and the bugs will eat the butter. They won't go near the margarine. So
No,
that'll
right.
tell you. Oh, yeah. No, seriously, though, make lists, plan the taste that you think you want, look in your freezer, see what's there already that you can defrost, and then do your planning from that. See what you already have. What do you think you want? You want to make spaghetti and meatballs? What do you need? You want to make salmon with a salad? Do you need the salmon, or is it already in your freezer? That type of things. Think of the meals that you'd like to have, whether it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For the most part, people eat the same kinds of breakfasts most of the time, daily. You can vary that if you want to try something different. And then that leaves you a little bit of wiggle room when you're going shopping to add something that, oh, that does look good. Or there's a special at the grocery store. So, but planning is important. And planning from if you think of a food, Jackie, can you taste it? Let's say I said lasagna. Can you taste lasagna? Can you get the feeling, the smell, the
Yeah,
taste?
I can taste lasagna. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Those are the kinds of thoughts that you need to figure for what you want for the week.
Right.
Yep. It
That
all
sounds
comes
that
from here.
sounds great. Yeah, and I mean, I suppose it is really about that pre-preparation, isn't it?
Hmm.
But in regards to how does cooking tie into then self-care? What do you think about that? So especially for women juggling so much, and also what's one thing every woman should do in the kitchen to feel more in control and less chaotic? Shall I ask you
Well,
the first question? How does cooking tie into self-care, especially for women juggling so much?
the cooking time? No,
How does
I'm not
cooking
quite
tie into
sure.
self-care? So women
Oh,
looking
oh,
after
good
themselves.
grief. Yes.
So they're juggling so much. So how does it tie into their self-care? And
Mm-hmm.
what's one thing every woman should do in the kitchen to feel more in control and less chaotic?
Okay. Thank you. Self-care, absolutely important. It's essential for self-care because what you put into your body shows on your face, in your hair, in your nails. Your skin is the largest organ. Food feeds your skin. You've got to take care of yourself. You have one body in this life to live in. If you don't take care of the body, feed it well, bathe it well, cream it well, take good care of your body. And feeding it is essential because whatever you feed it is going to give you energy or drag you down. And then when it comes to skin, sometimes in the kitchen, if I'm doing something and my nails look a little like they're getting a little dry, I'll just take a couple of drops of olive oil and rub them
Oh, good
in the
idea.
kitchen. Yep, either olive or coconut, actually.
So
Um,
manicure include manicuring your nails while you're actually cooking dinner.
while you're actually, and be careful when you're cutting. Okay, another thing is to feel really organized. Clean up after yourself. Try to clean up while you're preparing, but clean the dishes after dinner. I don't care how tired you are. Either put them in the dishwasher if you've got one, or clean them up and get that sink clean and the whole area where you're preparing food, because there's nothing worse to me, this is my feeling, than walking into a dirty kitchen, a kitchen that's piled
Yeah.
with dishes. And I've seen jokes about that, where people say something about, well, I can't find the dish or something, and there's a pile in the sinks like this. But clean up after yourself. It'll make you feel good. And it'll also help keep the kitchen clean and free of little critters that might decide they want to share your food.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. So look, I'm just going to ask you a couple. Obviously, I'm asking you quite a few questions here.
Yeah.
So, what's one small change one of our listeners today could make today that would have a really big impact? Just one small change.
One small change. As far as food, buy something that you've never done before. Buy something you haven't tried before. A piece of fruit that you've never tried, or a squash that you've never prepared. That's one thing. And also, if you haven't made lists, they're very important. Really, make yourself a list and always keep some lemons on hand, because lemons are wondrous additives to drinks and to foods, because they bring the flavors out of different foods. So just those little shifts, trying a new veggie or fruit, always have a lemon on hand, and clean up after yourself.
So, if someone only has 15 minutes, what should they cook? Is that going back to what they enjoy to cook, or trying something
hmm
different? Or would that be the salad, do you think, if they only have 15 minutes?
Probably the salad, or a very quick sandwich, or even an open-faced sandwich, or one of my favorite go-tos, especially late at night when I don't feel like really cooking, would be a couple of scrambled eggs. And you can add a lot
So,
of things to eggs. By the way, if you want your eggs creamy when they're scrambled, add some cottage cheese or just a couple of drops of milk. Either
yeah, it
almond, it
sounds
doesn't
cool.
have to be dairy milk. Yeah,
Yeah, also you could use an alternative milk then, not
absolutely.
necessarily
Yes.
if somebody's got issues with lactose, they could have an alternative
hmm
dairy-free milk as well, and it makes them creamier, does it?
Yeah, especially the cottage cheese, that type of thing. Or
Yeah.
even if you're brave, sour cream or yogurt. Just whip them up with that. It adds some creamy texture to them. And don't overcook
Yeah,
them.
right. And so is there any favorite one pan or one pot recipes that are easy and satisfying that you
Oh, yeah.
use?
And I can give it to you right now because it's very simple. I take Kalamata olives, pitted, of course. I take onions or leeks, chop them up, saute the olives and the onions together, and then I will add fresh tomatoes. If you don't have fresh on hand, open a can, drain it, and put a few spoonfuls of the tomatoes in. And then you can take any kind of fish that you have after you've mixed up the olives, onions, and the tomatoes in there in a pan, a good sized skillet, and put a piece of fish right in it. Put a little teeny bit of salt and a little pepper on it. Add a squeeze of lemon, and just cook it all together. So you've got your veggies, you've got the olives, and if you're not a tomato person, then just use the olives and the onions, and you could add something, another green if you like. If you have some spinach, throw that in the pan. Cook it up, and then you've got your meal. If you put your fish on top, how does that sound?
Sounds brilliant. It's making me feel hungry, actually.
Well, see, the olives, usually, if they're in brine, they have enough salt. You don't have to add a lot of salt. And then the onions are extremely good for you, or leeks, and they add some different flavor and texture. And the tomatoes add another color and also flavor and texture. So you've got a whole meal in one. You can also throw in some other vegetables if you have, like half a cup of peas left or something. Throw that in too.
So let's just and I'm going to ask, where people can get hold of you,
Yes.
etc. But on a personal note, what's your favorite comfort meal that's still healthy and doable?
Well, I do love oatmeal. I really do. And I think two things, oatmeal and scrambled eggs, because they're easy and I love the texture. I think those would be my favorites.
So if you could give one piece of advice, well, to anyone, but we're obviously mainly talking about women here, who feel stuck with food, what would it be?
Experiment, don't be afraid. Love yourself and experiment. Call it whatever you want. Play in the kitchen. Don't think of it as work.
Well, it's been really great to talk to you today, and I've learned an awful lot about you. And I actually look forward to interviewing you and you asking you lots of other questions to,
Well, that's
help
fine.
with
I would.
my audience and things like that. And we can do some other things going forward, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even a little bit of a quiz or, like
Oh,
little tasks and things
I'd
like that. But
love to.
where can people reach you? How can people get hold of you?
My website is rickiskitchen.net. That's RICKIS kitchen, one word, .net. And I'm also on Patreon, which is my membership site if you'd like to join, so you can take advantage of all the recipes. There's almost 200 recipes there. It's at patreon.com/Ricki's Kitchen. And excuse me 1 second, I have a cat that is trying desperately to open the door, which she can't. Okay, sweetie. I know what you want. Okay. And she is such a good kitty that she will never, ever have any accidents. So I have a feeling that's what she needed. Excuse me.
That's okay. Okay, so we're going to end that here, unless you've got anything that you want to add. But I'm going to put those links
I do.
below the podcast. So if you can, and I will actually be sharing those links. But otherwise, we'll leave that here today. Don't go away because I'm going to speak to you at the end. And it's really been lovely chatting to you.
Well, thank you. And you can also find my book on Amazon. It's Yes, You Can Eat Well and Eat Right and Find the Joy of Cooking.
Right, and I'm sure our listeners are really going to get a lot out of this. So
Thank you.
see you